I am so good as a cog in the machine if I have somebody else that I am responsible to, because that's what I've been taught my entire goddamn life. Like, if I don't do my homework, I get bad grades. The school is mad. My parents are mad. I'm chilling, though. I don't give a unless, like, I get my electronics taken away from me. I'm chilling. Fast forward to when I'm working a day job. Like, I need to get to work on time. Otherwise, my job gets mad at me. Then maybe I lose my job. I don't make money. I need money to live. I am now in a precarious financial position. And that kind of negative reinforcement keeps me a good worker bee. Keeps me a good cog in the machine. And this is all in spite of my ADHD. In fact, a lot of that negative reinforcement actually helps me overcome the ADHD in that way. Not because I'm doing it for me, but because somebody else is gonna have a problem if I don't. So because of the fact that I'm always doing things for other people my entire life, when it comes time for me to actually give a about myself and do things for me, I have no idea what the I'm doing. I don't know what to do. I have no idea. Anyway, speaking of, go get Onra's Nostalgia. That's Thai, like Thailand. Really good album. I have nearly every Onra project. It's very good. Also, JaidenAnimation's, who we've reacted to in the past, apparently put out a new video. I don't know that I've reacted to her videos in a while. I haven't reacted to many videos generally in a while. It's just not really what I do as much. Lord knows what I do nowadays. Let's see. Pokemon sent me to Japan. That sounds fun. My obsession with Hatsune Miku. My birds laid eggs. Phase. That said, should say birds with the capability for laying eggs. It's not all birds are women that can lay eggs, okay? Let's be woke here. Female birds just lay eggs whether they're fertilized or not. So like it'll like if you're not allowing your birds to breed, or like if you have just one bird, which you shouldn't, you should have at least two if you're gonna have any. But you shouldn't have any because they're a high maintenance pet that most people can't handle. Anyway, they do it just by default. They just they just pop it out, which is why you have to make sure they have good calcium, because if they don't have good calcium, the egg can get stuck in their body and they could die because of that. It's not good. You gotta be careful. But anyway, what was the last video? This was the second to last video we reacted to, being not straight. The other one was dating things I shouldn't, which we did after that. So it's been essentially 2 years since I've reacted to a JaidenAnimation's video. And this one's on ADHD, apparently. So let's see what's up. I also have ADHD. I've got diagnosed with it. I take Ritalin, or a lesser form of it called methylphenidate, which is easier to get because of the shortage that was going on for a while. And also, it's a low enough dose that I take 2 a day. So I take one when I wake up, and I take one essentially at the middle of my day, usually when I'm going to be live streaming, or around that time if I'm not streaming that day, so that I have the energy from it for that event, for my work, in this case, Omega Lol. And I also drink coffee. And yeah, it's been pretty chill. I'm pretty sure ADHD is like wrecked a variety of elements of my life, especially when it was not medicated, which was the majority of the time that I've been, having it. I think Ritalin and methylphenidate the same thing. They're essentially the same thing, but there's some differences when it comes to the methylphenidate from Ritalin, as per what my psychiatrist is telling me. The whole can of worms. I'm not a pharmacist. So let's see what's up. 17-minute video. That's pretty long.
Do you ever think to yourself, man, why is it so hard for me to just do the things I need to do?
Nah. Anyway, that was fun.
Focus and remember things and manage my time and be organized and remember things and not get sidetracked. Ha! Yeah, me neither.
Oh, speaking of fidget toys, because there was a fidget spinner, I think a low-key goated fidget toy is just a standard deck of playing cards. Specifically ones you don't care about. Like, you could shuffle Magic the Gathering cards or Pokemon cards or whatever, especially if they're in a sleeve, like the ones I have behind me. Those, like, squash shuffling sleeved cards, very satisfying. Not as easy with playing cards outside of a sleeve, but I mean, you can do it. It just takes a little bit more work. Low-key goated. Fidget toys just messing around with playing cards. It's fun. I've been enjoying that. Remember hearing this story way back in the day? If you were a kid in the 50s, 60s with ADHD, people assumed you were either weird or lazy. Yeah! But it turns out you were still weird, but you might not have been lazy, and, the usual expectation of the term. Which is to say that you don't necessarily have the ability to not be seen as lazy, but rather your brain chemistry is such that you quite literally are having difficulty functioning executively,
When I was a kid, I was pretty much the picture-perfect depiction of a good student. I was well organized.
Ah, we're gonna do the gifted kid to burnout pipeline. Dr. K from Healthy Gamer actually has a really interesting video on that concept, and I feel like I've learned a fair bit of it. You could literally look up Healthy Gamer gifted kid to burnout pipeline. It makes a lot of sense. The basic synopsis of the idea that I'm gonna absolutely butcher and bastardize is that when you're very young, what is expected of you as a student is obviously not as severe, for one, not as intense, rigorous, whatever. And any kind of ADHD symptoms that you might have might only benefit you in terms of what you need to get done to be a good student in school. To the point where, like, you'll be overachieving. You'll be able to do very well in a variety of subjects without really having to try so much. And then you get labeled a gifted kid by the school. You get into G&T, which is what it was called for me, gifted and talented. And you do other extracurricular stuff as it pertains to that. I went on a variety of field trips to learn more things. We had some activities. We did like a play once, I remember, at school. But yeah, so like you end up being like really good at school when you're very young. Like this was, for me, this was in elementary school, I think. And then, you know, you get all that praise heaped on you, like, oh my god, my kid is in G&T, so smart, wow. And then eventually you get into later and later stages of schooling, and the coursework and expectations become a lot more difficult. You know, it's a low skill floor in the education system, but it's a high skill ceiling. And the difficulty ramps up in such a way that might even be, you know, unbalanced, and the devs might want to look into it. But eventually, like, because you've been so good at school for so long, and you haven't had to try as hard as some of the other kids to, you know, essentially overachieve, you'll not have had to use as much of your time and energy to learn how to learn, if that makes sense. Like, you won't have made good study habits because you haven't really ever had to study. Your work ethic might be hurt a little bit as well, which is kind of, you know, paradoxical considering you'll usually be getting your work done quickly. But because the work becomes harder later on, all of these things that you would have developed, or you may have developed otherwise, if you weren't so-called gifted and able to do all this shit really well early, ends up biting you in the ass down the road, and you start to fail. You start to get worse and worse at a lot of the things that you used to be really good at, like memory recall for test taking, like getting homework done, all this kind of thing. And that can start to impact your grades. And that certainly happened to me. The memory recall for me was not the thing. I have ADHD inattentive type, meaning that I'm not the type of person to be bouncing off the walls and talking a mile a minute and all this kind of stuff that you would expect from like somebody with ADHD. I have the type of ADHD where I'm prone to analysis paralysis, where I'm prone to like get entranced in doing nothing. Like I'll just be sat at my desk and like I know I'm needing to be doing something else, but I'm just like, it is impossible to wrench myself from that position. Usually outside stimuli helps with that. Like, you know, if one of my housemates walks by or if a cat that lives here walks by, that'll usually help me get out of it. But otherwise, like I could be stuck in that position for a while. I don't know if that has anything to do with the memory recall thing, but in school, I was always good at tests. Even, you know, later on in my high school years, I was always really good at tests. And what really hurt my grades was that I was terrible at homework. The big reason being, when I'm at home, when I'm meant to do the homework, I'd rather be doing literally anything else. And I would be able to do almost anything else as well, because my test scores were good enough to like float my grade to the point where my parents weren't going to be too mad. But I could have done a lot better if I just did my homework. And, you know, because of this, like, I'd rather be playing video games. I'd rather be doing literally anything else. And that caused my grades to suffer. Anyway, we're 20 seconds into the video, if anybody realized. You know, it's just very funny because the name of the video, haha. Lamau.
Always turned in my work on time, got good grades. I even did my homework on Fridays instead of procrastinating until Sunday night. Sure, I didn't like studying and found it hard to focus during it, but who didn't? Saying all those qualities put together, that doesn't sound like the brain of someone with any kind of attention deficit.
Oh, and I should say that I enjoy learning. I'm a big fan of it, actually. I do it fairly often, and not just like passively through watching YouTube videos, but especially lately. It'll usually be the case that I'll get very interested in a certain topic and then want to learn about it. But lately, it's been linguistics. It's been languages. I've been very interested in learning Spanish and now Japanese. And, the way I'm doing it is through Duolingo. It's not the most extensive. It's not like I'm going to school for it or having a tutor, but I'm learning new things and I'm enjoying it. I'm a big fan of linguistics. I find the concept of language very interesting. So because of that, learning Japanese and learning Spanish has been a lot of fun. Spanish because, that's one half of me. And I would have learned it as a kid, but my dad is always working. My mom doesn't speak Spanish. Both of them were poor. So it was difficult to have the time, et cetera, et cetera. Public school Spanish classes are not that great, at least not when I was growing up. And then Japanese because it's just the primary language that I'm hearing in media other than English. Because if, watching anime or whatever, if I want to get into hobbies that I have difficulty to start them at all, yeah, for sure. And a lot of that difficulty could even come not just like from your ADHD in the regular way that it might manifest, and that like you just have difficulty with the executive functioning of making the decision to start the hobby, but also like the negative feedback loop of, well, I mean, if I do start the hobby, what's the point? I'll probably just end up fizzling it anyway. And then you'll never want to start it then because you won't want to like have your mind create a negative view of the hobby once you do start it if you end up succumbing to the same problems that you already have experience with when it comes to ADHD. Because, like, you could get really into a thing, then, like, decide to keep going with it, and then eventually, if you do end up fizzling out, if you don't process that in a productive or constructive way, you could end up, like, souring your view of that specific thing for the rest of your life, even. And that's not great, That's the problem that I have a lot. It's not just, like, the chemical difference in my brain, but it's also my experience with the consequences of it when it comes to potential new hobbies. Or even relationships, for that matter. Because my ADHD has also made it difficult for me to maintain relationships, platonic or romantic. Some shit, man. For me, I think it depends on the topic and maybe the teacher, too. I had to take geography and biology for my GED. The teacher seemed like they had zero interest or passion in teaching the students the subject. Yeah, imagine if we had teachers who were paid better, What if we actually gave a damn about the education system in this country and paid teachers for the incredibly necessary work that they're doing to the point where they're not having to, like, struggle to live, you know? The people who take care of your children for 18 years of their life, kind of an important job. I feel like they should be compensated well so that they can do the best job as possible so that the newer generations are productive members of society and keep the human project moving in an upward trajectory.
I was well behaved, didn't feel like I struggled much in school, and didn't cause any trouble. That is, up until I moved out of my parents' house for the first time to go to college. Gradually, I started slipping. I began skipping classes a bit when I just didn't feel like going, would wait until the last moment to start classwork,
classic.
and lost a lot of motivation because I wasn't interested in any of my schoolwork.
That's really interesting as well. The leaving work for the last moment. Like, I was so good at the work that I was doing that instead of like actually doing the homework at home, when it made the most sense to do it, when I had the most time to do it, I'd rather be playing video games. So what I would do is I would get done with the work I had to do in a specific class that would be before the class that I have homework due for. And then with the extra time that I would gain in that class for finishing the work then, I would then use to do the homework that I, probably should have done the previous night, and so on and so forth. Which is to say that if I didn't have these struggles, I'd be pogging out of my gourd, when it came to education. If I actually was able to like control my brain and wrangle it to be able to have a good like schedule and work ethic for school, I could have been insane. I could have been a fucking nutcase. And then maybe I could have gotten like a scholarship to a 4-year college and, gotten a degree in something maybe. But it's all a bunch of shoulda, coulda, woulda. The interesting thing about life is that you can still go to college. Like I could go to college, like whenever the next semester starts. I would just have to like sign up. But the thing is, like, I don't know what the fuck I would want to go for. And I would have to pay money for it, more than likely. Maybe not, given my financial situation, but, I mean, for me, I feel like it would be, like, more of an extracurricular thing, and not, like, an investment into my future. I'd just, like, be doing it for the experience. So, like, it's hard to rationalize doing it then, because I don't really have a passion for anything I would go to college for. Wish I did. Weird question, but do you think there's a difference between being lazy versus having zero interest in doing stuff? Oh, for sure. I would think, right? Like, laziness, it's hard to quantify. I feel like if for someone to be lazy, they have to be having the capability to do the thing that they need to do and just not wanting to do it because they would rather do something else. Like, for instance, making your bed. It's very easy to do it for most people. And it could even like have a positive emotional boon for you to do it because generally speaking, humans like to live in clean, hygienic environments, and having a neatly made bed could be part of that. But you just might not do it because you don't want to, like you don't want to put in the effort. I would say that that's like kind of laziness. It's hard to. I think it's hard. It's a hard question to answer because it's all very nebulous and subjective, person to person, versus having zero interest in doing stuff. Well, like if you have like because I have little interest in doing much of anything nowadays, and a big part of that is depression because I've been going through it recently. I've been rotting and not having a lot of passion to do much of anything. And it's peaks and valleys. It ebbs and flows. I'll get back to a better position at some point. But for the meanwhile, I have been, in my view, lazier about, for instance, doing chores. Because like I do chores essentially every day to an extent, but like there will be times where I skip it now. There will be times where I have difficulty like even seeing like what's the point in doing a variety of these chores. And then obviously once I actually do them, like I feel better. And like since I live with other people, it's also helpful for them, and that's part of why I enjoy doing them, like doing the dishes and all this kind of stuff. And I just haven't been doing it because I haven't been able to like put the reason for why I would do it like into my mind. It's hard to explain. So I would say for that is laziness for me. But it's also like comorbid with the depression thing, which is a harder thing to deal with. Like there will be times where like I just being lazy. Like I know I should get up and fill my water bottle because I haven't drank water in a minute, but I don't want to. Like I'm just lazy. I could easily do it and it would be beneficial for me to do it, but I just don't want to right now because I'd rather like vegetate in front of my goddamn screen or whatever. So I'll like wait until the last possible moment where I feel like, okay, now like I need to drink water, so maybe now I'll get up and go and do it. Or like if you're like when you've woken up and like you really have to take a piss, but you're just too lazy to get out of bed and just take a piss. Even if you were like to go use the bathroom, come back, and then get back in bed, like you'd rather just not even get up in the first place. So you just sit there uncomfortably until like the very last moment where it's like, okay, bladder, you've made a fair point. I'll go up and relieve you now. That I would say is laziness. But a lot of it obviously could also be comorbid with executive dysfunction. You know? It's really hard to parse. Yeah, no, dopamine is fucked up. Fuck dopamine. That's some bullshit, man. The brain literally makes it because of, the fact that you're eating and drinking water. Like, you're putting the work in as a human, but this is a butchered and bastardized NL bit. But, like, you're literally putting in the effort to help your brain create dopamine. And it wants the dopamine. It can make the dopamine. But for some reason, you have to do additional work outside of the work you've already done to get it. It's fucked up. Anyway.
I chalked it all up to the fact I was simply over going to school. At the same time, my YouTube was really kicking off, and all I wanted to do was that. Of course, I wasn't gonna be as good of a student when the silly YouTube videos were doing numbers. I finished a single year of college and convinced my parents to let me take a gap year to see where this YouTube thing can take me. Spoiler alert, the gap year turned into me never going back. I'm a college dropout. So great, I've eliminated the boring school part of my life that weighs me down. Now I can go back to being organized with my new exciting passion job,
Lamau,
which entails being my own boss and having to manage and assign myself all of my own responsibilities 24/7. Why are the voices not getting quieter? It's almost like everything was going backwards. I was having a much harder time staying organized and focused. If I didn't want to do a certain type of work, I would have to shackle myself down in basically an isolation chamber to be able to get it done. If I found a new interest, it was all I could think about. And why is it so easy to suddenly be on your roof watching a YouTube video on how to know when you need new shingles?
So I feel like I'm watching myself right now. Because I've talked about these things a lot in the past. I think a big problem that we have as a society is that the majority of the time that you're in school, you're essentially being taught how to be a worker for whatever industry that you are going to be working for once you get out of high school and or college. You're essentially just being taught what you need to know in order to be an effective cog in the machine to make money for wealthy capital owners. A very simplified, version of how our current economic organization works, but that's a big part of it. And because of that, you're almost always being taught how to work for somebody else. And because you're only being taught how to work for somebody else and not yourself, if you end up working for yourself, you're not going to know what the hell to do. Like, I'm an exceptional worker bee. I'm an exceptional cog in the machine. When I'm at my goddamn day job, way back when, I was, for a while until I started hating life, overachieving. I wasn't annoying about it, luckily, but like I would be going above and beyond the expectation. Primarily out of self-interest, because I don't give a fuck about the company I'm working for, but because if I can get my work done that I need to do, that's obvious to the management, if it's been done or not, I can then use that extra time to fuck around and not have to, be stressed the entire day at work and just for some of it. And because I'm good at the job that I'm doing and the position that I'm in, I can do that. Obviously, if you make it known to management that you have done the work quicker than expected and you're a very efficient worker, you get penalized with more work. So you want to make sure that you can kind of pretend to work while not. It's a fun little game you play with your management. But like, I am so good as a cog in the machine. If I have somebody else that I am responsible to, do the checklist of things they need me to do. Because that's what I've been taught my entire goddamn life. And that's the majority of my working life's experience as well. And so, like, that's the case in school, right? Because I'm not, like, only responsible for myself and whatever. I have to do my homework or else I get worse grades. I get worse grades, I get in trouble with my parents and, the school. I have to do the schoolwork and not be a degenerate in class in order to not get in trouble. I have to get up on time and get out of bed and get to the bus to be able to get to school, or else I get in trouble with my parents or get in trouble with the school, yada, yada, yada. There are so many things that I'm responsible for doing that I need to do for other people in that instant, right? Like, it's for me as well, because the education I get at school is helpful in my life. But all of the negative consequence of, like, being derelict in those responsibilities is somebody else's problem. Like, if I don't do my homework, I get bad grades. The school is mad. My parents are mad. I'm chilling, though. I don't give a fuck. If I get up late, because I'm up all night playing video games, and I get up, like, I oversleep, miss the bus, don't go to school, the school's mad at me, my parents are mad at me. I don't give a shit. I'm home now. Unless, like, I get my electronics taken away from me, I'm chilling. Fast forward to when I'm working a day job, like, I need to get to work on time. Otherwise, my job gets mad at me, and then maybe I lose my job. I don't make money. I need money to live. I am now in a precarious financial position, and that kind of negative reinforcement keeps me in that position and keeps me a good worker bee, keeps me a good cog in the machine. And this is all in spite of my ADHD. In fact, a lot of that negative reinforcement actually helps me overcome the ADHD in that way. But not because I'm doing it for me, but because somebody else is going to have a problem if I don't, right? So because of the fact that I'm always doing things for other people my entire life, when it comes time for me to actually give a fuck about myself and do things for me, I have no idea what the fuck I'm doing. I don't know what to do. I have no idea. Because, like, how can I be self-employed if, like, I have nobody that is, like, I need to do things for? If I'm a Twitch streamer, I'm doing this for me. I'm doing this because I want to do it as a career, so I don't have to work a day job anymore, because I've already done that enough. And, back when I was doing this and working a day job and living on my own, there was the negative reinforcement mechanism of, like, well, if I don't get one of these two things going, I'm gonna not be able to pay my rent, and then bada bing, bada boom, my life is fucked. Now, I'm in a lucky financial position, and a lot of people obviously don't have, the luck that I've had to achieve this. There's a lot of work put in as well, but most of it's been luck, I'm not gonna lie to you. Because of that, like, if my stream fucking implodes on itself, and I don't do it for work anymore, I'm not on the streets. Like, there's going to be a push by the people I live with to, like, be like, okay, well, you gotta get back on your feet at some point and, like, get shit working, because not even just for us, but for yourself. Like, what if, God forbid, we disappear? You're gonna have to live on your own, potentially, in that situation. It would behoove you to do things for yourself in that way, yada, yada, yada. Like, there would be that, but it's not as strong as, like, when I was living alone. And because of that, like, I have no actual concrete reason to keep doing it. And that's what gives me the difficulties that I have when it comes to doing this as a job. It's some bullshit. And if I was actually taught from a young age, if not my whole life, how to do shit for myself and not just work for other people, I probably wouldn't be in that position. In fact, I'd probably be not only better at working for other people, but also better at working for myself, which would make my quality of life improve, even if I still worked a job that was for the benefit of other people. Which, obviously, like, being in the medical field or whatever, like, there's that way of benefiting other people, and, like, you're a doctor or whatever. But in the service sector, like, being for the benefit of the consumer and then the people that make the majority of the money that your labor produces. Like, even if I was in a job like that, I would probably be better at managing my own life at that point outside of the job, to the point where I would probably be in a better position mentally and physically, and then be a more productive and efficient worker in that way too. So, like, it's even beneficial for the people that want you to be a good worker bee and have kind of massaged society and the education system to kind of move you in that direction. It's also something that I've talked about in the past when it comes to sleeping. Because I've had a sleep disorder the majority of my life, all of my adult life. And a big difficulty that I had for a while was getting out of bed. Because, like, what the fuck's the point if I don't have, like, a specific reason? But, like, the majority of my life, when I'm young, like when I'm like not even in school yet, when I'm like super young, I'm waking up because, my parents have to do whatever it is for the day, and I can't be left home alone because I'm a stupid, dumbass, single-digit human. So like I gotta go with them. Like if we gotta go grocery shopping, I'm gonna have to go with them, even if I'm just fucking goo goo gagaing in the cart. But eventually, like you get into school, and then you have to wake up because you need to be able to go to school on time because it happens in the morning. Because generally speaking, human beings operate pretty well when you wake up and you're awake and working, doing whatever it is you're doing when the sun is out, and then going to bed when the sun goes down. That was the human alarm clock for a long time, the sun. So like you have to get up to be able to go to school because otherwise you get in trouble with your parents. Otherwise you get in trouble with school. And you have to go to bed at a decent time. Otherwise you're going to feel like shit the next day. And then you might have difficulty like getting to the bus or getting to school on time, or you might miss the bus and yada, yada, yada. And then it feeds into all the shit we were talking about before, to the point where like, I don't know that human beings are ever taught like how to have a good sleep schedule. I don't think it is a thing that anybody has ever been taught. Because you've always been operating off of the inertia of expectations of you when it comes to, having to go to school or having to, get up to be able to go with your parents to do whatever they're doing when you're very young, or having to go to work. When it suddenly gets to the point where like you're in college and like you don't necessarily have to go to class because you're the one paying for it. Like the professor's not really going to care if you're there or not. It's entirely up to you if you're going to make the most out of the money that you've put into and the time you've put into going to college if you're going to go to that class. You start to have difficulty rationalizing doing it because there's no outside force forcing you to do it. And I have also struggled with this. Anyway, we're 2 minutes into the video. Should we even finish the video? Like, I feel like I've done enough. Goddamn.
Despite feeling like I was downward spiraling for multiple years, I never suspected it could be something related to a genetic neurodevelopmental disorder. I just thought I wasn't trying hard enough and being lazy, or applying myself like I used to. Oh, the woes of turning into an adult, I suppose. Maybe the best years of your life truly are in high school. How upsetting. I didn't even enjoy those either. But then one day I got a text from my brother.
And I feel like it's interesting anyway. I'm just thinking about, I forgot this video was about ADHD. Because at a certain point, I've just been talking about like policy prescriptions and societal construction and how a lot of those things would alleviate the difficulties that are being described in this video. I completely forgot like the ADHD part was a part of it. Because like even if you did have like with the ADHD shit that I suffer from, like if a variety of aspects of society were, moved in a position that would, help people's quality of life be better, like the ADHD shit wouldn't hurt you as much. You would still want to be able to deal with it and like work the best, with it that you could. But like, it's even worse now. Like it's a double whammy instead of the single whammy. Yeah, because society is disordered as well. Society has ADHD. It's not actually true. Obviously, it's a joke, but like people with ADHD, it's a neurodevelopmental thing. It's a chemical thing in your brain, and it is something that you're born with or you develop over time. And I should say often, but nearly always, that is outside of your control. Whereas society, while it might be outside of the control of the individual, it should ostensibly be in the control of human beings that live in it. And in our current organization, the people who vote for the representatives who then go on to do the will of their constituency in order to mold society in such a way that benefits everybody. But that's not really how that's happening. So society is theoretically easier to change than like a neurochemical disorder that you might have gotten through genetics,
I got diagnosed with ADHD. It was a pretty big surprise for me because growing up, he never really seemed to show any of the typical symptoms you associate with ADHD. People would
Wait, who's this person? Sorry, your brother. Okay, brother.
Always describe ADHD to me as super hyper kids who would run around the room and scream and generally be a lot. That wasn't my brother. He was quiet and well behaved like I was. But when he started...
Look, I'm tired and it's way past my bedtime. You showing feet soon or not? No, but you can ask your mom. I showed her about a foot the other night. Like, if you want an idea of what that might look like, you can ask her.
Explaining his symptoms, the gears started turning. Yeah, I've always struggled a lot with focusing in school and having things hold my attention when it's boring. But, like, I could hyperfixate on things I'm interested in and get really passionate about that stuff.
Imagine if we allowed people to, like, not necessarily, like, give in to their hyperfixations, because, like, there's, obviously, like, hyperfixation is often a negative thing, but, like, for the things that they're actually passionate about, what if, like, as a society, we allowed them to cultivate that passion and maybe, turn it into something that's incredible and something that they can share with society? Or frankly, just something for themselves, you know? What if instead of like stifling the passion of human beings and forcing them into jobs that they don't want in order to make wealthy people a couple more dollars, we allowed for people to do what the fuck they wanted because they'd probably be better at those things anyway? Sounds like a novel concept, but it might work. It's the classic quote as always. I'm less interested in the intricacies of Einstein's mind and more interested in the thousands of Einsteins that have toiled and died working in the fields or some shit like that. The point being that, like, there are a lot of people with a lot of potential out there that just can never see it realized because as a society, we don't allow for people to do that. It's quite cringe, really.
It took a few years after my brother was diagnosed for me to really sit down with myself and consider that I, too, could have ADHD. Shocking revelation, I know. Foreshadowing, where did you come from? Things in the focus and productivity department were just getting worse and worse. I had the attention span of a cartoon dog, would completely forget things as soon as they entered my head, would hyperfixate on random stuff like an addict, and there was constant civil war happening inside my head to get one thing done, even though I knew it would only take like 15 minutes.
Yep.
You don't understand. It feels like physical torture to make myself sit down and lip sync a simple scene, like most of the time. You know, the thing I've been doing for 10 years at this point and am definitely used to doing. And yeah.
And theoretically enjoy, right? Ideally. Now, of course, in our society, you're not allowed to just do things because you enjoy them. Most of the people that have a passion or hobby or something, like that passion or interest will immediately be poisoned by the parasitic worm that is needing money to survive. And you'll have to try to find a way to monetize the hobby so that it's not a hobby anymore and just a job, so you never can actually enjoy anything that you do because it always has to have the end point of you being able to make money to live, otherwise you starve and die. So, you know, what if we allowed people to enjoy things? I think that'd be kind of cool.
So, finally, I figured I would try and get myself diagnosed. What did I have to lose? If anything, they just tell me, no, you don't have ADHD, try a little harder and stop complaining.
And, you know, also sometimes you might just not have the money to be able to get a diagnosis or have the money to afford the medications or the therapy that might be helpful in alleviating some of the negative symptoms of said issue should you be diagnosed with it. But, you know, I've already talked about how we have a pay-to-win healthcare system in this country. So, you know.
Of course it took me like 8 months after deciding to get diagnosed to schedule the actual appointment. What did you expect? That's like the first checkmark box on the ADHD list. I started seeing a psychologist and he would ask the typical, do you have a hard time focusing? And I'd go, yeah, like this one time yesterday, and then he writes something down as I continue rambling on this hyper-specific example way too long for a neurotypical person. I met with him for a few weeks and then it came down to diagnosis day. The nerves, man. I was so ready for him to say I'm a normal person who needs to suck it up. But instead, he was like, okay, so yeah, you definitely exhibit symptoms of someone with the inattentive type of ADHD.
Oh, hey! Twinsies, man.
And autism. Yippee! My struggles are just...
Hey! Twinsies. I've not actually been diagnosed with autism. Apparently, that's relatively difficult when you're an adult. But also, I don't know that I need a diagnosis for it. I feel like my actions speak louder. But yeah, autism, ADHD. There's also a lot of overlapping. Like, the Venn diagram between symptoms of people who have autism and people who have ADHD is almost a circle. So it's difficult to parse them as well. So I have been diagnosed with ADHD. I have not been diagnosed with autism, but I feel like it's a safe bet.
Type of ADHD. And autism. Yippee! My struggles are justified. I'm not crazy. Wait, what was that last part? He explained all
it should be said that just because you have this diagnosis doesn't mean it's an excuse for any, you know, difficulties you might have had, because if you get the diagnosis and then you get the help, but you don't do the help or engage with it or continue trying to work on it, simply getting the diagnosis, while it might give your brain a little bit of pause and like chill vibe, you still gotta do more shit, which is the difficult part.
Different ways ADHD affects me and the different areas I struggle with compared to others. He even gave me a 37-page document of his conclusions and information on how my brain works, with graphs and pictures. I've read through it all a bunch of times now, and it's already really helped me understand how I tick. I call them the autism docs, but I'm not gonna get into that side of the diagnosis. Let's just brush that one away for now.
I will say, it takes all types to make society move. But autists hold up half the sky. So much of what you enjoy in your life has been developed by an autist. And a lot of the obvious ones are obviously the media you enjoy. But the less obvious ones are like a lot of tech-related things, engineering-related things, stuff like that. But like it takes all types. Some autists or ADHD havers or whatever are not good at doing certain things, and regular neurotypical people are better at doing certain things, and yada yada yada. We all work together.
There's a couple types of ADHD you can have: hyperactive, inattentive, and combined, which is both hyperactive and inattentive. Hyperactive is the type people typically go to when they think of a loud kid who can't sit still. People with this kind normally need
Which also can just be a kid being a kid. Also possible.
Fidget, have low patience, tend to talk a lot, and have trouble staying seated, especially when they're expected to, like in a meeting or school. Inattentive is the one where someone experiences difficulty in focus, memory, organization, has a low attention span. That's the one I have. It's self-explanatory, but if you have the combined type of ADHD, then you got it all. ADHD jackpot right there, my friend. I brought up during the appointments that I used to be such a good kid in school with seemingly zero ADHD symptoms, and how that part has always confused me. And he had a couple hypotheses about it. One, since my mom has always been a big source of my organizational influence, I was able to depend and lean on her for the majority of my school life for it. I felt like I was naturally capable of staying on top of things because she was right behind me the whole time, reminding me and guiding me through stuff. So when I moved out, everything started crumbling, which lines up pretty perfectly to when I did start struggling. Another explanation he gave was the fact that ADHD affects women differently than men, which is also less researched. Love to hear that one. Not only do women tend to be able to mask their symptoms better than guys, so it goes much more unnoticed, but they also experience ADHD differently. And research says there's a chance it can just start affecting women later in life.
I have to imagine that a lot of, like I said, I'm not a psychology, but I have to imagine a lot of the differences in how ADHD affects a person, be it like women, men, whatever, are going to be hormonal. Obviously males and typically people who identify as men are going to have more testosterone in the body, and the inverse for estrogen. I have to imagine that a lot of that is going to be hormonal, so that if you were, say, a transgender, making sure there were none in the room with us right now, if you were a transgender, if you've had like ADHD, autism, whatever, when you were not on hormones and then you get on them, I have to imagine that like your symptoms could change or manifest in different ways. I would imagine that's probably something that's going to be relevant to your therapist or psychologist.
ADHD scientist though, that's just what I've been told by specialists. I don't know, I've just got the dang thing. Either way, those two explanations make a lot of sense to me and have since put my weird ADHD imposter syndrome to rest. I didn't really think that getting a diagnosis would change.
I saw that there's a very significant percentage of people who experience gender dysphoria and autism, though. Yeah, for sure. There's a variety of reasons for that like you could get into if you wanted to. I think one of the biggest reasons why there's an overlap there, or at least the one that makes the most sense in my brain, is that it is often the case that people with autism will have difficulty adhering to the expectations of society because those expectations are societally constructed, and therefore they are reinforced by other people and not by your own brain, like naturally coming up with the ideas. So because of this, if you have autism and you have difficulty adhering to societal expectation, be it you talk when people would expect you not to, or like you dress a certain way that society, doesn't typically like or whatever, however it is that your lack of capability to adhere to the expectations of society, which you're not often doing on purpose, however those manifest, that could also be the case for gendered expectations, right? You could have an autistic man out there who is like really into a feminine hobby of some kind, and they could still be this gender, heterosexual, whatever. They're just really into, I don't know, ballet, and they've got like a fixation on it. And they might not even understand why people might look at them weird because of the fact that, they have autism. Obviously, this is super simplified and it affects everybody differently, and it's always case by case, but that's a common experience that people with autism have. And if you get into gender expectations, it would then follow that a person with autism would be having a higher probability of not understanding why certain gendered expectations are in place and therefore subverting them. Or at the very least be more likely to question them. Because like if you're already in a position where you're bucking the expectations of society in other ways and questioning why it is that like society gives you hell for doing so in ways not related to gender, as soon as you bring gender in, which is also a construct of society, you're going to likely have that as well. So it's going to be like, oh, well, I mean, why is it the case that I am expected to like G.I. Joe and not wear dresses as a boy or as a man or whatever? why is that a problem? I don't think it should be. It doesn't make sense to me because it's not logical. And it quite literally isn't. It's irrational because it's not the domain of ones and zeros, it's the domain of human construction. We're not a perfect, animal. And because of that, you might have a person that's more likely to question their gender identity and how they express themselves to society and want to be seen by others in society. I think that's a big part of it.
Since getting my ADHD certificate and lollipop, it's completely revolutionized how I think and go about getting things done. It's still hard to get my ass into gear when I need to do one normal thing that's not difficult, but I'm much less hard on myself and will strike almost like these kinds of mental deals to loophole myself into getting things done. Like, for example, if I really don't want to edit a video, I'll say to myself, okay, I know it's gonna be super hard for me to immediately start that task, so I'll get myself into the mindset of getting things done by doing a simple other task I don't find difficult, like cleaning my room. That way, I'll feel productive and can transition that into tackling the original task much easier. It doesn't always work, but it's the mindset change and overall understanding that sometimes I'm gonna have to go about things in different ways that's helped me a lot. Also, after being diagnosed with ADHD, I didn't have much desire to get medicated. I figured just knowing I have it would be enough to get things into gear, and I didn't really need medication that bad.
Oh, the hubris. The folly of man. I was the same way.
But the content creator in me also thought, well, if I'm gonna write a script about having ADHD, it would be nice to be able to talk about what it's like to be medicated, even just for a day. So I got prescribed good old classic instant release Adderall. It wasn't until I had the Adderall in my hands when I realized the idea of taking it for the first time made me nervous. Like, what is this thing gonna do to me? I have so many friends with ADHD, honestly a higher ratio than friends without it. That's how it goes in content creation. All these MFs have it. They were all telling me that it's awesome, how you'll take it and immediately feel like a god, and you can do anything and it's incredible. And yeah, that sounds great, but
yeah, that's also not always gonna be the experience. Like, medication works differently for different people, and a lot of it is like trying out shoes, like some are going to fit better than others. So it might be the case that one drug is like the one that will make you, operate at like full capacity. It might be the case that there isn't one like that. And you might need stuff outside of medication, like therapies and whatnot, to be able to deal with it. And, for some, it might just be like the medication helps a lot. It doesn't do literally all you need, but I mean, it is what it is. At least it's better than without. And for some, medication might not even be the way. Sometimes for some people, it might just be therapy. For me, Adderall didn't do for me what a lot of people who had used it that I know said it did for them. It helped a little bit. Like, it was certainly better to have it than not, but it wasn't as profound of a difference that other people described. So then I've tried other ones. I've tried Wellbutrin, and that one was it was just giving me like blurry vision, which can happen and does tend to go away. But I was worried that an increase in eye pressure would make my keratoconus worse, which, if you don't know, is a genetic eye disability that essentially weakens the corneal lining in your eye, and then the internal eye pressure in your eye ends up distorting your cornea, and then the way that your eye takes in light changes, and you become more light sensitive, your vision gets worse, and all this kind of shit. You can get like vision artifacting and whatnot. So I didn't want to maybe make it worse. And then I ended up getting on methylphenidate, which is a version of Ritalin, and it's been chill. I feel like I might have to up the dose because it feels like it's not doing as much as it used to, which tends to happen. There's like a tolerance thing to it. I'm also on like the lowest dose because I'm usually pretty hesitant about going above the lowest dose for some reason. But I'll probably, the next meeting I have, I'll probably be like, yeah, we should probably bump it up to the next step, which I think would still put me below the average, but we'll see. We'll see if that's much better. It does help, though. And it might be the case that like something else would be better, like Vyvanse or something. Who knows? It's just a matter of trying it. But I've been fine with chilling with methylphenidate. The thing I like about the methylphenidate is that it's extended release, but it is commonly prescribed that you can take it multiple times a day. Whereas like usually for an extended release, like Adderall or whatever, you take it in the morning and then not again because the release is extended, obviously. But for these, I could take it when I wake up, which helps me like get my day going. And then before stream, or just before I intend to get any work done, in the middle of my day, I'll take it again so that I have the brunt of the effects of that medication for that specific work that I want to do. And I like that flexibility. Whereas I think with Vyvanse, it's just like extended release. You take it in the morning, that's it. Or I'm playing with cards. I don't know if you can. Playing cards, good fidget toy. Is this your card? Probably not.
I put off taking Adderall for so long because I was irrationally scared of the tiny blue pill, but coincidentally, I
That's 'cause you have to take the red pill.
needed to get a script done. If I take too long to write a video script, then the team runs out of work to do, and then I have a bunch of people sitting around and waiting for me to give them more work so they can pay their bills and survive and stuff. But for the freaking
that is a
life of me,
difficulty, yeah. It's another, it's like, it's flipping what I was saying before on its head. Because, like, you're responsible for other people the majority of your life. As a student, as a child, to a parent, as a worker, like, you are responsible for other people. And if you don't do what you need to do, like, you'll suffer and they'll get mad at you and then, like, you might suffer more. But when it comes to being self-employed and working on your own, and then eventually potentially even having employees or people that work with you, you become responsible for them. And that's a whole different beast. That's a whole different animal. Because you'd think like, oh, well, you know, you're talking about how the absence of being responsible for somebody else as, you know, a child to a parent or a student or a worker is making it harder for you to get shit done. Because if you don't have like a bunch of tasks lined up that you need to do, or otherwise whoever is responsible for you gets mad or whatever, you have difficulty doing them. Well, why wouldn't it be the case then that if you have people that you are responsible for in terms of like your employees, wouldn't that be enough of an incentive to get you to do the shit? No, it doesn't work that way. You wish it would, but it doesn't. Because this is a thing that you have to fix on your own. It's a thing that you have to fix for yourself. Removing the other external stimuli from the equation and helping yourself is the way you deal with the issue. Because even if it was the case that having employees that rely on you for work to be able to get paid to pay their bills, even if that is enough of an incentive for you to get your shit together, it's still not as good as just getting your shit together for you, you know? It's like if people have kids and now like they're responsible for those kids and that kind of helps them orient their life in a more positive way and like be more productive. Like if that works, sure, but you shouldn't have kids on the hope that it might, because it might not. Like you should have kids because you want to have kids and you want to, you know, raise a human being into the world and give them the best life possible. And yeah, and I have experience with that because like I don't have the same kind of operation that Jaiden does, but I do have an editor that helps me with the videos that go on the main channel. And if I'm not able to get a segment to him, you know, he's not able to get paid because, you know, the work is required for the payment, and then he can't pay his bills either. Now, luckily for him, he works for a bunch of different people, not just me. High Progressive, shouts out. But I mean, like, it's still like a thing that I have to think about, but it doesn't really make the executive dysfunction that I struggle with when it comes to this job any better or easier to work with. That's why I'm scared to get another dog, because people say getting a pet will help people with ADHD be motivated to get things done, but what if it doesn't, and then I end up neglecting the dog? Yeah, exactly. It's difficult. Because you have to do things for yourself, not for other people. But your entire life, like I say, is not for you. It's for other people. So you never learn how to do that.
After literally 2 months of my brain going, ooh, you better write that script, I won't let
Love
you
that.
enjoy a single moment of your life if you aren't writing that script.
What a great feeling.
I don't wanna. Get up, go to the bridge. After that constant loop, I finally swallowed my fears and took my first Adderall. I had talked to James a lot about what Adderall is like since he's been on it for a few years now. And after I took one, I was messaging him like, I did it. I ate an Adderall. How long does it normally take to start? How do I know? What do I
ate
do?
one.
And he was helping me a lot and giving me tips. Then, like 20 minutes later, I felt it. All the non-stop thoughts going on in my brain
Or I guess the lack thereof,
went
huh?
silent. I could think clearly, and in like a line. My mind wasn't racing a mile a minute. I was able to sit behind my laptop and write. It was incredible. I was messaging all my friends about it the entire time. I can write my script and not get distracted. I don't have to take a mental break every 10 minutes. I can remember things. Kelsey sent me a message and I thought, I'll check that in a bit. And I remembered to check it in a bit. And respond! When I opened a new tab to look something up, I didn't go down a random unrelated rabbit hole. I picked up my phone to check something and didn't impulsively scroll Twitter for an hour. I can write words so easily. How am I doing this? What do you mean?
And isn't that like paradoxical, huh? Or at least contradictory to the expectation that a lot of people have who haven't had this experience. A lot of people think of like Adderall, Ritalin, whatever, as like a stimulant, as like an upper, as like a, oh, if you take this, you're gonna go, you know? Or like even caffeine. But a lot of people with ADHD will drink caffeine and say it makes them sleepy. They'll take Adderall, like Desert Island in chat said, and say it makes them sleepy. And it's not that the drug itself is literally like a sedative or whatever, or like a sleep aid, but rather it's like if your brain is already going a mile a minute, and then you get a drug that, like, for neurotypical people makes their brain go a mile a minute. For some people with ADHD, it kind of like calms it down. A better way to put it is that, like, a person before the drug will, like, have their brain go in a million different directions, and it'll be difficult to focus in one single direction. They'll just be going all over the goddamn place, when going forward, straight up, is the way to go. They just can't get there because everything else is going everywhere else. The way that the chemical of caffeine or Adderall or Ritalin or whatever changes their, their brain chemistry, it makes it so that all those different directions chill the fuck out and become less relevant, and then you can now focus on going straight ahead, which was what you would want it to do the whole time. ADHD is lacking the stimmy juice, which is what, dopamine? So you need to bring that up to expected levels. So yeah, and that's kind of the case for me too. Not entirely, unfortunately, but caffeine and, in this case, Ritalin, it does give me a little bit more energy. But I think my experience is different because I have chronic fatigue from things that aren't ADHD, which would be depression, but also, like, combination ADHD depression typically makes people fatigued because, your brain is having to allocate a lot of energy to useless bullshit because of your afflictions. And then also because I have year-round allergies and chronic sinus issues, the fact that I have to be on 2 antihistamines in order to function like a normal human being also tends to make people fatigued. And also, and then you add in the sleep disorder shit, which is me having difficulty going to bed. Not because I'm not tired enough to do it, because as soon as I lay down in bed, I'm out in like 5 to 10 minutes. I don't have difficulty falling asleep. I have difficulty making the decision to get ready for and then go lay in my goddamn bed. But anyway. So, like, because of that, I think my experience is a bit different in that it's going to require more than addressing the ADHD depression thing to really help me feel like a normal person. But yeah, like, I don't have insomnia or whatever. I don't have difficulty falling asleep. I have difficulty waking up, essentially. Like, I have the opposite, where it's really easy for me to fall asleep. To the point where, like, I'll be so tired, and in situations where, like, I need to be staying awake, I will fall asleep. Like, I've fallen asleep standing up before. I don't have narcolepsy, I don't believe. I've never been diagnosed for it, or tested for it. But just because I'm tired all the time, and it's very easy for me to fall asleep, that's helpful for when it's time for me to go to sleep for the night. But it's not helpful for, like, if I've had a bad night of sleep, and then now I'm at work, and I need to be awake to do my job, but I'll literally be, like, falling asleep standing up instead, And this is, like, a physical job, because I've worked food service my whole life. So, like, if I had to work a desk job, like, it would be impossible. And there are times even now where, like, I'll be so tired to the point where, like, I can't really do anything. Like, I end up vegetating, and then eventually I just surrender and, like, lay my head down on my desk and take a quick nap. And then once I get out of that for however long that takes, just usually like 5-10 minutes because it's not very comfortable, then, like, I feel a little bit better, but, shit's fucked. I also had difficulty staying awake at work no matter how well rested I was. Yeah, well, I've never had, like, a night of sleep where I woke up feeling, like, refreshed and energetic for the entirety of my adult life.
I refuse to believe regular people can function like this on a day-to-day basis. No way. It wouldn't be fair. You guys don't have loud, non-stop voices in your heads preventing you from
doing... Why capitulate to the woke mob? Why use the X logo and not the Twitter logo? Man, that's fucked up.
It's preventing you from doing normal things? Come on, just admit it. You can't pick something up and immediately keep remembering what you were supposed to be doing with it. You always forget and feel crazy. Come on. I still can't believe what I was able to accomplish. Writing a script in 3 hours. Compared to my typical 12 hours, aka one mediocre thing with no struggle at all. And you want to know what I did right after I wrote this script? I immediately got up and cleaned the birds' room without rotting in bed for 3 hours beforehand. I just went from one task to another without thinking about it. All you neurotypical people must be thinking I'm literally pathetic and useless, but I know my...
And I am, but I'm getting better. Speaking for myself.
I'm not standing before you all to give you scientific data and information on ADHD, or diagnose you, or even promote prescribed drugs. I'm just here to talk about a big and recent experience in my life, how much of an impact and effect it's had on me, and how awesome feeling normal is. Seriously, being able to take a deep breath in mental silence is incredible. Cherish that feeling if you don't have a neurodevelopmental disorder. It took me 26 years to realize my woes were not actually woes, but symptoms of brain chemical deficiency. I'm writing this video, all things considered, pretty recently after being diagnosed, and I'm still trying to learn how to rebuild my life in a way that lets me optimize my productivity and get things done at a normal level. But so far,
And the hope would be in that way. Because a lot of this conversation, especially for a lot of people, is going to be, like she says, optimizing productivity. And it really just depends on how you'd identify that, like how you define that. Because, like, productive for who? Because hopefully it's for you. You shouldn't, like, be trying to fix your life to be productive for somebody else in terms of, like, doing your goddamn day job better so that your manager and the CEO can make more money off your back, right? You should be doing it for yourself. So obviously, like, if Jaiden's working for herself, then that productivity is a good thing, obviously. Or, like, if the productivity that you're talking about is, like, your day-to-day life of, like, keeping your house clean, keeping yourself clean, and, you know, staying healthy and whatever, that's also a good kind of productivity. But a lot of this conversation centers around, like, being more productive in terms of, like, your job. And if your job is, like, making somebody else money, is that really something to strive for? Like, obviously, you want to be good enough at your job so you don't get fired and then not have an income and then starve and die. But that shouldn't be, like, the goal. That shouldn't be, like, the primary motivator. The word productivity is weird because it's been bastardized by people that want to make money off of your labor. But it seems like for Jaiden, at least from what we can tell from the video, it's a good thing because it's like it's for literally her passion project and job.
if you're on the fence about being diagnosed with something, I get it. It's scary. It's scary to think you might have it, and it's also scary to think you might not have it. It's an odd place to be. But for me, having a concrete answer from a professional is what got me to finally stop feeling stuck in place and actually start moving forward again. It's been great. I'm excited to keep learning more things about how my mind works and find new ways to improve my day-to-day life. Cheers to getting normal shit done.
In case you missed it, I have new merch.
Wahoo.
For a limited time, you can get yourself a new and improved Ari plush and a completely new soft Ari jacket. I
What
love
the
both of
heck?
these products, and up until June 23rd, they could
Good
be
for
all
you.
yours. If you miss it, you'll never know how fluffy and pillowy the jacket is. Oh, it's like a cloud. Or how cuddly and friend-shaped the plush is. Plus, it's a great way to support both me and the team while we continue to make animations for you. Check them out at JaidenAnimation's.com. Thanks for
I
watching.
appreciate that the Willard person here is just a worm of some sort. Big fan of that.
Watching the video, and good luck simply existing to all my ADHD brethren out there. I'm right there with you. I believe one day you'll respond to that message in your inbox. Hang in there.
Well, that was fun. Anyway, good video from Jaiden. Very poggers. Long ass segment, but it was fun. Ugh. Maybe one day I too will get my shit together.